So again, this discussion is going to be about Urso, and basically we just want to have basically an open discussion where we know a lot of people in the room have a lot of information, but there's a lot of new people as well that don't have as much information. So I know, obviously from the three doctors we heard today, we heard a lot about Urso, about its effects and how beneficial it is for PBC. But again, there's different types of responders, non-responders, as we heard from the last doctor, Dr. Bullis. So I think there's a lot of potential information, but we just wanted to have a discussion about some of the questions addressed on the Facebook group and make sure that we talk through some of those. And I'm getting a flip chart brought in here as well in case we have any questions we need to write down and all that. But I just wanted to give you a little details why they asked me to talk about this, because I'm not a doctor. But I was the product manager for Urso 250 when it was still branded, and helped to launch Urso 250 or Urso Forte, the double strength formulation of 500 milligrams, shortly after the generics launched. So I was in process of looking at authorized generics, and we'll talk about kind of the differences between brand and generic and fillers and those kind of things. And just some of my background as far as I've done a lot in market research as well as other indications as well. And just to prove my cred, here's my picture way back when I was at one of my first PBC conferences. So just thought I'd share that for everybody. Thanks for the flip chart. So really the objective today is just to cover a little bit about some of the questions that popped up, try to inform everybody, but it's really about helping you have a conversation with your doctor, because as we heard today, everybody's unique in how you respond to different medications. Not one drug is a panacea. So, but there are a lot of benefits to Urso. But we always want to make sure that you consult your doctor before doing any kind of changes, right? That we're not doing any of those changes on our own, that we're discussing it with our hepatologist or gastroenterologist to verify those things. So some of the questions that that brought up, the biggest areas were some of the side effects, talking about those. I think we heard quite a bit around those earlier, and that's why while Dr. Gish was up there as well, I probed a few questions to help seed some of this, because I know adverse events and long-term adverse events with Ursodiol were a question. Also around the branded versus generic formulation was a big percentage. Efficacy, dosing, cost and product assistance, as well as drug-drug interactions, or DDI. So that's just some of the things we'll touch on. We've heard a lot about this, why Urso first line. It's shown a lot of efficacy. So there's a lot of history, a lot of results around it. But again, not everybody, not everybody responds. So there's responders, there's non-responders, and then there's intolerant, as well as we saw partial responders earlier today. But just to give you a little difference, people were asking, so what's the difference between Actigol and Urso 250 or the generic? So what's the difference between the tablet or the capsule, right? So the main thing really is Actigol was approved back in 1987. It was for gallstone dissolution of non-calcified, as well as prevention of gallstones, right? So that's where it originally started here in the US. The lucky thing for the Canadians, I don't know if we have any of the Canadians in the room now, but the lucky thing for them was they've only had the tablet formulation, which was always indicated for PBC, and they didn't have Actigol for gallstone dissolution. They actually used the tablets. But anyways, the dosage has always been more accurate because of that, because they only had the tablets. The dosage for gallstone dissolution, that's one of the things we were trying to find out, or I wanted to find out from the survey, was were people being dosed more at a gallstone dissolution versus a true 13 to 15 mg per kg per day, which is what Urso 250 and Urso Forte were founded on. So it's interesting. We'll show those results in a second. But just so you know as well, the generics for the tablet formulations did launch around 2011. So that's why we've seen a lot more generics. And as far as the fillers, we'll touch on that in a second. But we see a lot of difference there, but also the idea of the cost. And one of the things when generics launched, there was always the idea that it would drop the price significantly. Back when I was the product manager, typically prices would drop about 80%. Now they're not as much, and now we see they're actually rising. So it's actually on the inverse because they realize, they can get more for that. And it's about the negotiation. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to get too much into it. The reason some people are covered for Actigol or the capsules, even though it doesn't have an indication for it, so the reason sometimes insurance companies says you can only get Actigol or the capsule is because it's the same drug. It's not indicated, but it's the same drug of ursodeoxycholic acid. So they see it as an equivalent from that standpoint, which does cause some issues. And we'll talk later about insurance appeals and those kind of things. I think that's where you have some opportunity to really appeal with your doctor to make sure you get the formulation that works for you. I'm not saying capsules don't work for some. They work well for some, as well as tablets work well for some. It's about finding what works best for you if you are a responder to Urso at all. The other thing around the tablets and the insurance coverage, a lot of it's about the price, but also the negotiations. Pharmaceutical companies do negotiate with the payers based on rebates and those kind of things. So that's why you see differences in the price and differences in the tier level and what you'll pay. So that's where a lot of that comes up. And we'll touch on that a little bit when we get to the cost section. But just remember that each manufacturer of the tablet or capsule is different bioequivalency, different fillers, and different costs for you. So it's about finding, though, what's right for you and fighting for that. So this is something I just wanted to pull up. Any questions of what I've touched on so far? Yeah. Sure. Basically, the reason it wasn't approved for PBC is they would have had to done clinical trials to prove that. And they weren't investing in, because Actigol launched in 1987. The patent had already expired. There wasn't a reason for them. There wasn't really the profit for them to get it approved. Plus, insurance companies were already allowing prescriptions of Actigol for PBC, even though it wasn't indicated. Insurance companies already mandated some people go on that, so they didn't need to get the indication. Capsule. Really? Okay. And that's maybe something we can, not on the formula. Yeah, unfortunately, to get that approved, it's surprising that they, I guess because of the cost of the capsules are going up so much, and nobody's negotiating that price. So, yeah. And your physician's already fought to help you appeal that 3 times. Yeah. That is a touchy one. Maybe we can touch on it offline and see if there's other ways to help you out. But okay. Yeah. That's not up to me. It's basically, she was asking, what would you choose? I think we'll see some of that in the results from the survey, that people are getting results. And you see that, most of the studies have been conducted with the tablet formulation. So there hasn't really been many studies on the capsule formulation. So, but it's up to your physician as far as what you respond best to and the side effects. Yeah, and all that. Good question. She asked if the side effects are more prevalent. And we're going to touch on side effects here shortly, so I'll go to that shortly. But this, I just wanted to give you a list of all the different manufacturers. As you see, this is from, and this is a site that you can go to yourself. It's from the FDA. It's accessdatafda.gov. And basically, it's called the Orange Book. And the Orange Book just lists all of the equivalent drugs. And It's just access data, ACCESS data.fda.gov. And we'll provide these slides too so you guys have the full information. But the rest of it, I don't think you need as much as you can just even search out Orange Book FDA, and this will be what comes up as the access data. But it basically just gives you a list of all of the drugs with the proprietary names. So Actigol, Ursodiol, you have actually the Urso 250, Urso Forte, down here other Ursodiol formulations. But then it gives you the capsule formulation, the route, the strength, and it also tells you whether it's AB rated. So that's whether it's therapeutic equivalent. So all of these are equivalent to their reference list drug. And the RLD is the reference list drug. So as you see here, the capsules, the generics of capsules use Actigol as their reference list drug, and the generics of Urso 250 or Forte use them as their reference list drug. And then you also see here all of the different manufacturers that are producing. So as you see here, we have Allergan, Epic, Lanet, Mylan, Teva, Forest, a bunch of them. And you also see the ones that are discontinued down at the bottom as well. Yeah, they haven't changed the name, though, with the FDA. So it's still technically under Forest, even though Allergan bought Forest. So, yeah, that is correct. But you'll still see it listed as Forest in there. So it's an interesting aspect. But anyways, the reason I wanted to show this is just to let you know that this is how they basically, what a drug has to do to be approved as a generic. It has to be within, well, the old days they used to say 80% to 20%. It has to be bioequivalent, though. So approximately the same amount of drug going in as well as going out in the area under the curve. So that's how it gets approved. And that's where all these drugs come from. Now, as we go into what we saw, different people within the survey, what everybody is on, we saw that a good percentage, so 65% of people are on tablets, and about 21% are on capsules. And the others, the non-US, mostly are on tablets, but we didn't specify on that. So I just wanted to give that information. And what we're seeing with the breakout, so the amount of people that are on generics, as you see, is about 40%. So 40% of the 517. So 57% of people are on the generic tablet formulation, and about 25 plus, so the other remaining amount are on the branded 43 things. So, and then in the capsules, we see that some are on the Actigol, 38% are on Actigol brand name, and 62% are on the generic. So just so you know how it breaks out with what people are on right now, and we know some people are responding well to capsules, others are responding well to the tablets. So it all depends on which you respond best to. Good question. That's basically for efficacy. So responding and your levels, ALP levels, are normalizing or getting more within normal limits and all that. It can. That's some of the questions noted that, and this her question was about changing formulation and changing the response to that. Some of the people in the survey and in questions did note that they saw a change in their ALP levels based on the formulation that they were using. So that was some of the reasons that they want to go back to their doctor and say, I want this formulation. So yeah, definitely that's something that people have noted. And as far as that being a difference necessarily, I guess it's something we need to study more, but I don't think anyone's funding it right now, unfortunately. But as far as the recommended doses, here it is 13 to 15. The clinical trials, as you heard from the doctors today, it is based on weight though. So it is based milligrams per kilogram. So doing that conversion of your kilogram weight to make sure that you're taking the right, and then obviously multiplying it times a 13 to 14 is recommended. Again, some people respond lower, some respond higher, but that was the optimal that was done with all the clinical trials. That was what they established. And the question, for those of you who didn't hear it, is there a need to go higher if your labs are normal at a lower level? I mean, that's something obviously to discuss with your doctor. If your labs are within normal limits, it makes sense that you wouldn't have to change. But again, I would just confer with them that it is the right amount that you're on, and that your labs are and your fibroscans and other things are doing well is kind of a main thing to do. As far as dosing, I know that was another question, like what's better, once or 4 times a day? Yeah, and yep, yep. And that was something, I think that's one of the questions I made sure to ask. The question was, when's the best? What's the difference of once a day versus 4 times versus twice a day? The studies were done with twice and 4 times a day, but again, with your doctor, you can work that out. But as we'll see in this, the dose frequency of people in the survey showed that 59% are taking it twice a day, and obviously seeing good results with that. And then as you see, there's a broad range of 1 time a day in the blue, 1 time a day at middle of the day, midday, 1 time a day at PM, 1 time a day at bedtime. So a lot of people are taking it once a day, and they're seeing good results as well. But again, I think Dr. Gish had mentioned earlier today that it is studied at twice a day, but it's up to you what's going to be best for you. So there is no concerns really of, they haven't really shown that taking it once a day is harmful or not as effective, but sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I was trying to check on the half-life before this. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that was one of the things too, is side effects for some people are more based on when they dose it. But that's a good point, and I thought the half-life was more around 7 days. But again, it is in your system longer than 6 hours. So it is, yep, I think it's around 7 days, but don't quote me on that. You can just talk with your doctor as well, and they can look it up. But yeah, uh, with, yep. So it is recommended. That's what's recommended in the label, is to take with meals. Mm-hmm. Yep. Is anybody doing? Are most people with food, or yep? Anybody not? Okay. Mm-hmm. No. No, I didn't dive into that specifically because I think there's not enough studies to really show one versus the other. There hasn't been a head-to-head of a capsule versus a tablet. It's kind of what you respond to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think just working out with your doctor what's the best formulation for you as well. 36 days. Oh, great. Thank you. The power of the internet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it works well for you? Okay. I don't know. Is anybody else? I haven't seen it. I didn't find anything that specified at night is better versus if you're done take it once a day. But if it's working well for you, that's good. Nice. Well, that's good. So she was saying she doesn't get nausea. She takes it all in the evening with the banana and milk and doesn't get nausea. There hasn't been really studies showing once a day. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I was getting nauseous when I was taking my morning dose, but I was fine in the evening because I'd always take my other dose right before I went to bed. So personally for me, I don't know if other people experience the nausea. I just started taking, and I do the one time a day and take mine all before bed. And I've been fine with that. I haven't had any nausea with it.
Have others found success kind of modifying when you take it to help with the nausea? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Good point. Did everybody hear that? Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely an excellent point to take it with the meal so that as you're producing bile normally, the Ursodiol is coming in to help flood in better bile in your system. Great. Yeah. Good question. I don't think it has to be a full meal, but it's recommended to take with the meal. I haven't really seen studies. Is there any thoughts around, Jim? Okay.
My doctor explained to me that you got a bile pool, and that's what does your digestion during that. All you're doing is adding to it. So I'm not so sure that you're adding to it during that digestion at that same time. You're pulling from your bile pool, it's already there. So when you take it is probably, now this is a big assumption to me, it all depends on how you feel when you take it. Are you nauseated? Are you got diarrhea afterwards? What is happening during that time? As long as you're taking it, that's my assumption. I took that as assumption.
No, that's a great comment. I think it's another theme we're learning is like everybody's individual, and we're trying to understand more data to really understand treatment causes, those kind of things. But as far as dosing with a treatment, I think it's about what works best for you. And as we heard, some people capsules work better, others. Yeah. Uh, okay. That's a. She had a question that she had a big spike when she took Urso and was told she was allergic to it, and she was asking if it might be fillers. That's actually something we're going to show shortly. And I think has anybody had any issues with certain formulations because of the fillers? Okay, we got a couple. Okay, yeah. So that's something we'll touch on and just kind of show the fillers, and definitely for some like lactose, when that's added, if you're allergic to lactose, definitely that's going to be influence on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good question. Good. Yeah. With the gallbladder, yes. Yeah. So if you don't have your gallbladder, we were just talking. Thank you for the help. So if you don't have the gallbladder is to store the bile, but your liver actually produces the bile. So thanks for the anatomy lesson again. So so one of the things that I thought was interesting was we were trying to understand is everybody on the right dose, or do they think they're on the right dose? So that was a question that we asked in the survey, as well as was addressed in the Facebook questions that people posed. And actually about 74% have the perception that they're on about the right average dose. And when we looked at the actual, so based on approximate weight range, and as you'll see here, I have the weights that were used, so under 100, 100 to 150, and the kilogram conversions there as well next to it. But about 75% were actually about the right range. So again, it's kind of working with your doctor to make sure it is the right range. And some people, the ranges are different, what works best for you. But from a general standpoint of 13 to 15 milligrams per kilogram, about 75% were on. the right amount. About 14% were showing a little low for their dosage, and about 11% were a little higher. And again, it's about working with your doctor to make sure you're on the right dose that responds for you. And if you don't respond, choosing another treatment that will help you for that as well. Okay, so to get a bit into the side effects, there's a couple batches of side effects. First off, the one that were listed when Urso 250 was approved based on just some of the issues we were seeing during the clinical trial. That included diarrhea, elevated creatinine, blood glucose, leukopenia, peptic ulcer, skin rash, thrombocytopenia. But then when you look at post-marketing, so after a drug is approved and on the market for a period of time, they need to collect the responses from everybody. So if you do have a side effect, if you do, get a severe rash or something like that, you need to report that to your doctor so they can report it to the manufacturer, the company, because they need to alert the FDA that they've seen this instance, those types of things. And that's where a lot of times drugs are pulled off or changed to get a black label because of those types of things. So it is important to make sure that you are listing any of those things you see. But as you can see, this does include pretty much all of the reported side effects that anybody, and it's assumed that these were associated with the drug, which, is definitely theoretically possible. But yeah, so just so you know, there's a lot of different side effects. But again, as far as and I think they have that, as far as what was reported, so we asked what were the main side effects you were seeing with Ursodiol while you're on Ursodiol treatment. And as we see here, the nice thing is that, about 46% actually don't really experience much of a side effect with Ursodiol. So that's good to hear for those that are responding based on the efficacy, as well as those aren't having side effects. But as far as those that are seeing the side effects, I know this has always been a common one, is weight gain with that. And I won't go into why that could be, but there's also hair loss, diarrhea, nausea, digestion or indigestion, metallic taste, I think fatigue, and joint pain. And they, those two were assumed to be from the med versus EBC. Other side effects below 5% noted were headache, itching, weight loss, urinary tract. I was actually surprised that itching was so low, but that's good to see, but it's about 5%. So it's just kind of in line with what a lot of people are seeing. And any questions on this? Okay, yeah. As I looked at the side effects listed on the PIs for both of them, they were fairly similar, but I didn't have a chance to pull them up separately. But I think it was more gastric issues and those kind of things with the capsule. So, but again, it's kind of personal on how it works for you and how it affects you. So understanding that is almost more important. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll go through the drug-drug interactions. Oh, okay. I don't think that's one that's. I have to look up. I'd have to look up a bit more about what Gaviscon is exactly. We have nurses here that know. Is that a Yeah, because that's the long-term use. So we heard from Dr. Gish this morning, long-term use and the efficacy, and basically as far as continued side effects, that was fairly low. So I think he addressed that earlier. So I don't need to go into that too much. We'll touch on the side effects though shortly, or the drug-drug interaction. I have those listed, and maybe we can talk through that. As far as the ones for the clinical trials, yeah, with the clinical trials, it was fairly standard as far as when they were supposed to take it was either twice or 4 times a day when this was originally approved, and it's supposed to be taken with food. So that was for the original. Now, as far as how the people with the reported side effects and all of these, we don't know exactly, because these are just all the ones that were reported with the FDA and with the manufacturer. So it's kind of, that's why it's such a large gamut of different side effects. So it's hard to say if it might have been from the dosing of when they took it versus the what is indicated and when they're supposed to take it. So long term, we'll kind of skip past that. I just wanted to show a comparison of the different tablet formulations. I know there's a lot of questions around this. So I have a few columns here. We have Glenmark, there it is, Glenmark generic, Par Pharmaceuticals generic, Urso 250, the original tablet, and then Impact Labs. So these are all the ones from that Orange Book listing of all the ones. And here's another good site to really see the label. So if you're on a medication from the pharmacist and you want to see the label up close, I recommend this website even more than the other. It's dailymed.m, N as in Nancy, L, M as in Mary, .nih.gov. So this is from the NIH. It's basically what they've done is they've compiled all of the basically active ingredients, inactive ingredients, dosing, all of the information about the product to one great website called DailyMed. And this gives you all of the information. So when you get a generic from the pharmacy, and when they change it from one generic to another, you can go here and look it up and see what's on it, or look at it before. You can call them up, and if they are going to change you, make sure that they let you know beforehand. Anyways, but you'll see a lot of the ingredients, and I don't know all these ingredients because I'm not. I took chemistry, but definitely wasn't a major. But as you look through these, you see a lot of similarities, which is interesting. So as you look between Glenmark and Urso 250, pretty much those lines match up, almost word for word, just slight changes in the word. Yeah. And so, yeah, especially like the polyethylene glycol, PEG 3350 and 8000. So you can see they're pretty similar, except for the hydrogen peroxide. But I think that kind of cooks off when they do it. Anyways, so when Urso 250, when I was actually the brand manager, we were researching having an authorized generic. And so what they did after I left Axcan was actually partnered with Glenmark. So as you'll see, and maybe you guys have experienced this, the brand is actually the same as this Glenmark generic. So those are pretty much comparable to each other. They're the only ones. As you look at Par Pharmaceuticals and Impacts, oh, I guess it's a plane. Okay. But as you look at the other two, they weren't given the secret cocktail of how to make these. So that's why you see a bit of differences. You see medium chain triglycerides, which is something for people who can't take lactose. I guess it's something they can take in place of. You see that obviously here for Impacts, it does have the lactose. So for those of you lactose intolerant, you might want to make sure you know which one they're trying to give you before they do that. The other cool thing about this website is they actually give you the label. So you could print that out and show the pharmacist, I don't want this, or I do want this, or whichever. So it definitely gives you a lot of cool information on that. And I did a similar comparison for the Actigol. So I just had tablet, the Urso 250, the brand tablet here in for reference. So not really to compare. But as you'll see here, Allergan, the one listed as Allergan, is the original Actigol, this 300. So as you see here, it was produced in 1987. So there's a lot of they didn't add not much stuff, exactly. So it's very light on how many fillers and additives and stuff like that. As you see the others that were introduced more around 2000 and 2001, a lot more stuff, and I don't have the biochemistry degree to go through each of those and what all they could mean to you. And we can provide you copies of this if you want to see, just to kind of compare. We can provide this to you afterwards as well. But as you look here, as I mentioned, Actigol was launched in '87. The others were launched after 2000, so that's why there's quite a bit of difference. But the main thing what I want to do is not to say it's not going to work for you or it's going to work for you based on the active ingredients or inactive ingredients. It's about knowing how your body responds and making sure you get the one that you're going to respond to, or if you have issues with it, immediately letting your doctor know, like, I have severe gastric pain or whatever it is from this one drug, from this manufacturer. So it's about making sure you know your body, right? So you want to keep track of anything that changes and how it impacts you. Yeah, question. Good question. So the question was, why would you add all of these different inactive ingredients? And I think a little bit shelf life, but I think to get down to it, it's about making it cheaper to produce, because adding lactose or other things, it's basically a filler. So it and if you're using a cheaper filler than others, it saves on cost. So they look at the bottom line with generics, like a penny per pill. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to point that out specifically. Where's that? Yeah, shellac and the... Yeah, no sawdust, but just something to be aware. Oh, for the shellac, for the printing on the outside? It might also be for the capsule itself, like gelatin as part of, one of these had gelatin. Yeah, well, they have to color the pill, So again, on a lot of these as well, you'll see like on this one, for this generic, they actually put a picture of it. It looks quite close to the original Actigol, which is a pink and white. So they do a lot to try to make it look similar so you're not as concerned. But again, you need to keep an eye on those things. And the other thing that I'll just note is each of the pills you can go to not only this site, but also, what's it called? The big book. PDR. Yeah, thank you. You can go to the PDR and see pictures of the actual pill. So if it changes from what you've been on, you can kind of look at it in there and make sure that it's the right one. I didn't bring up the reference for that online, but I think it's online as well too to do that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually what the one that I showed, the Glenmark. That's what they did actually that's an authorized generic of Urso 250. Yeah. I don't know if it was originally from Prasco and they switched over to Glenmark. That got bought maybe. But yeah. Yeah, and you can see that. Was that? Oh. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Although I'm not sure if this one has the same number stamped on the tablet as Urso 250. Mm-hmm. Yep. We have the NDC on the barcode. So as you look at the NDC, yep. Yep. So as you see, here's the NDC for the Glenmark. I don't know where there's the one for, so they're a little different on the NDC numbers, but the stamp on the pill may, yeah, because I've seen them before where they're different. So again. Yep. And as I mentioned, that's like they got the recipe basically, right? So that's why if they did produce it on the same line, or if they did produce it at another factory, they basically got the recipes. So they have the exact ingredients. So, yep. So, and I don't see that I didn't see an authorized generic that is the same as Actigol. I guess because all that stuff's probably expensive to produce. So, or cornstarch must be more. I don't know. Anyways, so we wanted to get into drug-drug interactions. So maybe our nurses or our pharmacists in the room. We had a question earlier about, what was the drug again that you were taking? Yeah, Gaviscon. Is it one of these? Yeah. Hmm? Yeah, yeah. But is it an aluminum-based antacid? So drug interactions, what's your recommendation on taking Gaviscon with Urso 250 then? Okay, so space it out by 2-3 hours if you are taking a aluminum-based antacid. And I guess drugs affecting lipid metabolism like estrogens, oral contraceptives, fibrates, and I guess any of the fibrates really. These drugs as well. Again, the space out for any of them that are. Okay, so for the drugs affecting lipid, yeah, like Crestor. Yeah, like Crestor would be included in that, right? Okay, okay, okay. Any chance you can look it up before we leave? I see has a computer open. The statins, using the statins. Is Crestor a statin? It is? Okay. Okay. So maybe we can double check on that with our pharmacists in the room. It's good to have one. Yeah. Yeah. And these were just some of the other medications that are checked. It's not saying that you need to stop or deter. It was just some of the things that I saw as listed as far as just to check with your doctor and make sure. They should be doing that as well as the pharmacist doing that. But the three top ones, the main drug interactions, are the ones that affect, especially like bile sequestering, so cholestyramine and cholesterol. Those, are definitely ones that you have to alter, I think, as far as making sure they're taken. Yeah, that's in the PI of the drug, but we can see about getting copies as well. Yeah. Another question? No? Okay, yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, because it's a bile acid sequestering agent, so it's basically sequestering the bile that you're taking, which is Ursodiol is a bile acid, so it was sequestering that at the same time as. Yeah, I would maybe check with another pharmacist at the. Yeah, yeah. So those are the top three areas, though: the bile sequestering, the aluminum, and the drugs affecting lipid, and making sure. Yeah. Uh-huh. That's just basically milligram. It was the names. So Urso 250 is 250 milligrams, and the Urso Forte was 500 milligrams. So it's just the milligram strength is the only difference in the names. Yeah. And that's something that pharmacists will typically just check to make sure that you don't have any interactions with these as far as when they're being. So I don't think it's anything to worry about if it's. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The question was about Urso Forte. It's a scored tablet, and when you break it in half, will you lose efficacy the next day when you take it? And to my understanding, the way they've formulated it, it's able to be broken without any changes in the. And that's why it's approved by the FDA for that use as well. Yeah. 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 Sure. Sure. Oh no, no, over a week it shouldn't lose because they've tested it where you could probably even break it out, yeah, over a longer period of time. So I wouldn't be too concerned. Yeah, and we're getting close to time. Let me see if there's anything. Oh yeah, so cost and product assistance. So Barbara, I know you wanted to bring up a lot about this, right?
Just that I switched my insurance this year, and when I went to cost it out, I had been taking 500 milligrams, 2 a day, 1,000 milligrams, and they priced it out at $1,600 a year. And I said, could you run it at 250 milligrams? And it is $72 a year. Because it's a tier 2 drug versus a tier 4 drug. And it really depends on, obviously, on your insurance, and it depends on your tolerance. I'm certainly not telling everybody to do that, but if you, can, and you're concerned about cost, that sometimes is one way to check it.
Yeah. Great, thanks for that, Barbara. Yeah, because I didn't want to get too deep into the cost because I think everybody is on a different plan, a different tier, all those things, and based on the formulation you're on. So I did pull up. There's this website called Fingertip Formulary, but you can even just go to your own Blue Cross Blue Shield or whoever you use. You can just go to theirs and download the formulary, or even call them. I know it can be a hassle, but that'll let you know what tier it's on, what the coverage is as far as tier 1, tier 3, non-preferred or preferred. And you can see there's a lot of differences here. It's probably a little tough to see. Sorry about that. But we can always provide that or help you look it up. But there is a lookup. It's called lookup.decisionresourcesgroup.com. And so you can pull in and look up your specific drug just to see, or your specific Actigol or Ursodiol, see how it's listed, what tier it's on. But again, you can look up that on your own, or as you're specking out, you can call them and find out as well. I know Barbara's been very active calling her. What was that? Sure. The other thing I just wanted to say is for those that are having issues, one of the things I know Barbara's done quite a bit of is calling and working with your physician to appeal. And I think that's one of the things you just have to do is make sure you're taking your rights into your own hand. When you're on a drug and then you're switched and you do have a severe reaction, let your physician know. They need to fight for you. You need to fight together. It's not us versus them. It's about working together to say, this is a drug that works for me. This is a drug that doesn't. Doesn't matter which drug it is and all that. And one thing I forgot to have a shout out to Sean as well. Sean from Retrofin is his company is working on Ursodiol suspension formulation as well too. Did you want to share anything about that? This company does a lot of work in rare diseases. So, what about people just kind of hands as far as trouble taking tablets or capsules, either one? And I imagine after the Roux-en-Y, yeah. So, because I know a lot of doctors were, back when I was a brand manager, they were compounding their own suspension, so it'll be good to have one actually available. Yeah. Oh yeah, I imagine. And did you find an answer for us? statins. Oops.
Like the binding of the magnesium and the calcium. The issue is that those are drugs, you're taking statins to lower your cholesterol, and the Urso may actually cause an increase in the secretion of cholesterol. So it's that your body is biologically having a fight, and you're losing some of the benefit of the lipid lowering drugs. It's not a direct drug interaction.
Okay. So they should talk with their doctor about.
Yeah, it needs monitoring, and you may have to have a slightly increased dose of the statin or clofibrin.
Yeah.
I happen to be a certified lipidologist. So one of the other things with statins and taking in liver disease in general is that statins can increase your liver enzymes. So there have been cases of even liver failure caused by statins. So there's just a cautionary. Anytime anybody takes a liver medication or has any liver disease, there's always caution to be used when taking statins. You always want to monitor liver functions, but you're getting those done anyway. So.
Great. Thanks for the added value. Okay, well, we're actually a little bit over time, so I'll cut it off here.